What if your darkest past became your greatest strength? In the shadowlands of the U.S.-Mexico border, where violence and redemption collide, one unlikely hero challenges everything we think we know about second chances. Can a former cartel weapon, trained for destruction, truly transform into a savior? Rocky's journey from darkness to light isn't just a dog's tale. It's a mirror reflecting our own human struggle. How many of us carry skills forged in pain, waiting to be repurposed for good? How many souls, like this German shepherd, need only the right moment to prove that what once broke us can become what saves others? The answer might break your heart, and then rebuild it. Shadow's Redemption, a hero's journey. Ghosts of the past. The desert wind carried secrets across the barren landscape of the U.S.-Mexico border. Among them was the story of Rocky, a German shepherd with eyes that reflected both tragedy and determination. His muscular frame moved with purpose through the pre-dawn darkness as he led Special Task Force Delta on their covert operation. Few knew that Rocky had once been called Shadow, a name given to him by a cartel handler who had trained him to sniff out tunnel locations for drug transport operations. Captain Marcus Reed watched the shepherd navigate the terrain with a mixture of pride and amazement. 2 years ago, the dog had been rescued during a raid on a cartel compound, aggressive, distrustful, and bearing the scars of his former life. Now, after intensive rehabilitation and retraining, Rocky had become the unit's most valuable asset. His transformation from cartel weapon to American hero remained one of the Border Patrol's most closely guarded success stories. The 5-person team moved silently toward their objective, a suspected weapons cache hidden in an abandoned mining facility near the border town of Esperanza. Intelligence suggested the location was being used as a staging area for smuggling advanced weapons to terrorist cells. Lieutenant Santiago, their communications specialist, monitored radio signals while Specialist Cooper, the team's medic, stayed alert for any signs of danger. Sergeant Miller, weapons expert, and Agent Rodriguez, their local guide, completed the elite unit. Rocky suddenly froze, his ears perked forward, body tensing in alert. The team immediately dropped to defensive positions, trusting the dog's senses without question. Captain Reed raised his hand for complete silence, watching Rocky's body language for clues. Then it came. The ground beneath them began to tremble. The first tremor felt like a distant truck passing. The second hit with the force of an explosion. In seconds, the world became chaos as an earthquake, later measured at 7.8 on the Richter scale, tore through the border region with devastating force. Boulders tumbled down from the surrounding hillsides as fissures opened in the earth. The team scrambled to avoid being crushed, with Rocky leading them toward a relatively stable area. As the ground finally settled, they emerged from their protective positions to witness a transformed landscape. In the distance, dust clouds rose over Esperanza. Emergency sirens began to wail, their distant cries carrying across the desert. Their mission parameters had instantly changed. Esperanza's been hit hard, Santiago confirmed, receiving emergency broadcasts. Multiple structures down, casualties reported. Captain Reed made the call immediately. We're redirecting. Search and rescue operations take priority. Heart of the rubble. Esperanza had transformed into a nightmare landscape of collapsed buildings and broken streets. Rocky moved through the devastation with singular focus, his powerful nose sampling the air for the scent of survivors trapped beneath the rubble. The task force had integrated seamlessly with local emergency responders, working tirelessly as hours stretched into days. By the 4th day, Rocky had helped locate 17 survivors. His acute hearing could detect the faintest whimper or movement, while his scent capabilities identified human presence even through layers of concrete and dust. Captain Reed noticed the toll it was taking on the shepherd. His paws were raw despite the protective booties they provided, and his eyes showed the exhaustion they all felt. On the 10th day, hope was fading for finding additional survivors. Scientific consensus suggested they had passed the survivability window. The team was scheduled to return to their original mission by the following morning, with most search efforts transitioning to recovery operations. During their midday break, Rocky lay panting in the shade of a medical tent. Captain Reed offered him water from his cupped palm, noticing how the dog's eyes constantly scanned the destruction around them. "You've done more than anyone could ask, boy," he whispered, running his hand along the shepherd's dusty coat. The transformation came without warning. Rocky suddenly sprang to his feet, ignoring his exhaustion and injured paws. His entire demeanor changed from weary to electrified, ears forward, body vibrating with urgency. Before anyone could react, he bolted from the tent, racing through the rubble with newfound energy. The team scrambled after him, watching as Rocky navigated the treacherous terrain with determined precision. He stopped at a massive pile of collapsed concrete and twisted rebar that had once been an apartment complex. The shepherd began digging frantically, pausing only to bark with an intensity that Reed had never witnessed before. "He's found something," Santiago said, already calling for the nearest rescue team. For 3 hours, they worked to clear the debris following Rocky's guidance. The dog refused to leave the site, even when offered water, his focus absolute. When rescue workers suggested taking a break due to unstable conditions, Rocky's barking became more insistent, as if arguing against them. When they finally broke through to a small void space beneath the tons of rubble, the rescue workers fell silent. There, curled in a tiny protective pocket created by a fallen desk, lay a little girl no more than 6 years old. She was dehydrated and injured, but alive, 243 hours after the earthquake. As medical personnel rushed to stabilize her, Rocky pushed forward, gently nuzzling the child's hand. Her fingers weakly reached out, touching his muzzle in a moment that brought tears to the hardened rescue workers' eyes. Guardians bound. The hospital staff quickly learned that separating Rocky from the little girl, whose name they discovered was Maria Vasquez, was simply not possible. The shepherd had appointed himself her personal guardian, refusing to leave her side even when coaxed with food or rest. Captain Reed received special permission to allow the dog's presence, recognizing something profound in the connection between them. Medical staff reported that Maria's vital signs stabilized faster when Rocky lay beside her bed. The girl, who had lost her mother in the collapse and whose father was still unaccounted for, spoke only to the dog in whispered Spanish that made the shepherd's ears twitch attentively. "I've never seen anything like it," Dr. Hernandez confided to Reed. "It's as if they communicate on some level we can't understand. Her trauma responses decrease significantly when he's present." What most fascinated the captain was Rocky's behavior. The shepherd, who had once been trained to serve criminals, who had gradually learned to trust his military handlers over 2 difficult years, had formed an immediate and unbreakable bond with this child. It was a transformation that defied simple explanation. 3 days after her rescue, Maria was strong enough to sit up and receive visitors. Officials came to interview her about her experience, but she remained largely silent, her small hand buried in Rocky's fur. It was only when a nurse mentioned that the team would need to leave for another mission that Maria spoke clearly for the first time. "He saved me when I was in the dark," she said in careful English. "He found me when everyone stopped looking." The intelligence briefing came that evening. Their original mission could no longer wait. Weapons had been detected moving through channels toward terrorist cells. The task force needed to move out immediately. Captain Reed knelt beside Maria's bed, explaining as gently as possible that Rocky needed to help other people now. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but she showed remarkable courage for someone so young. "He will come back?" she asked, her fingers tightening in Rocky's fur. "I promise," Reed answered, though such promises in their line of work were rarely certain. As they prepared to leave, Rocky hesitated at the hospital room door, looking back at Maria with an intensity that struck everyone present. It seemed the shepherd was making his own silent promise. Fields of Shadow. The mission took the team back to the border regions, this time to a remote area where satellite imagery had identified suspicious movement patterns. Intelligence suggested a heavily armed group was using the earthquake's chaos as cover for moving weapons across the border. Rocky led the advance team, his behavior returning to the professional precision that had made him legendary within the unit. Yet Captain Reed noticed subtle differences, a new determination in the shepherd's posture, as if he now had more than duty driving him forward. The landscape changed as they moved deeper into the canyons, transitioning from scrubland to rocky terrain pockmarked with abandoned mining operations. Their target was believed to be using one such facility as a staging area. Movement ahead, Santiago whispered, indicating heat signatures on his thermal scanner. Multiple targets, heavily armed. They proceeded with extreme caution, using natural cover to approach the abandoned mine entrance. Rocky moved silently ahead, his dark coat blending with the shadows as he scouted the path. Suddenly, the shepherd stopped, his body freezing in the alert posture the team had learned to respect absolutely. "Hold," Reed signaled to the team, watching Rocky's behavior carefully. The shepherd's attention was fixed on the ground ahead, his posture showing not the alert for human presence, but something different, a danger Rocky recognized from his specialized training. "Back up slowly," Reed commanded. "One footstep at a time." Agent Rodriguez didn't move quickly enough. Perhaps it was fatigue or a moment's distraction, but his boot shifted slightly to the right of their established path. The distinctive metallic click echoed in the sudden silence. "Nobody move," Reed ordered, his voice barely audible. "Rodriguez has triggered a pressure plate." The horror of their situation became immediately clear. They had walked into a sophisticated minefield, likely set by the terrorist cell to protect their operations. Rodriguez stood frozen, the color draining from his face as he realized his foot was now the only thing preventing detonation. "I can't," Rodriguez whispered, his voice breaking. Rocky moved with sudden purpose, approaching Rodriguez carefully. The shepherd's behavior confused the team at first, until they realized he was examining the pressure plate mechanism visible beneath the agent's boot. "He's working the problem," Reed stated, watching in amazement as Rocky began a methodical search pattern around them, nose working continuously. The shepherd disappeared briefly behind a rock formation, then returned carrying something in his mouth, a flat, heavy stone approximately the size of a dinner plate. With extraordinary precision, Rocky placed the stone beside Rodriguez's boot, positioning it for maximum contact with the pressure plate. "He wants to replace the boot with the stone," Specialist Cooper realized. "Maintain pressure on the trigger while Rodriguez withdraws." Captain Reed had witnessed Rocky's intelligence countless times, but this display of problem-solving transcended training. This was analytical thinking, connecting past experiences to present challenges. With meticulous coordination, they executed the dangerous transfer. Rodriguez gradually shifted his weight, while Rocky manipulated the stone into position with his muzzle and paws. The process took nearly 15 minutes of breathless precision before Rodriguez could finally withdraw his foot completely. The stone held, maintaining pressure on the detonator. Rocky wasn't finished. He carefully swept the area, marking safe passages with subtle pawing motions that the team could follow. His cartel training in tunnels and traps, once used for criminal purposes, now became their salvation. Echoes of betrayal. They successfully navigated the minefield following Rocky's guidance, eventually reaching their objective. The operation that followed was textbook. They neutralized the terrorist cell, secured the weapons cache, and discovered intelligence of far greater significance than anticipated. Among the documents recovered was evidence of a complex operation involving high-level corruption within local government. Photos, financial records, and correspondence indicated the terrorists had leverage over several officials, including a prominent federal judge named Vasquez. The name triggered immediate recognition. Captain Reed reviewed the file again, his blood running cold as he connected the pieces. Judge Eduardo Vasquez, Maria's father. The earthquake wasn't just an opportunity, Reed realized. It was cover for something bigger. Further analysis of the intelligence revealed a disturbing truth. Maria hadn't simply been a victim of the natural disaster. Her rescue had been documented in the terrorist communications as an unexpected complication. She had been deliberately trapped in the building collapse, a hostage to ensure her father's cooperation. They never expected her to survive, Santiago said, reviewing the evidence. And they certainly never expected a dog to find her. When they returned to base, they were met with urgent news. Maria had disappeared from the hospital. Security footage showed men in medical uniforms escorting her out a service entrance. Judge Vasquez had also vanished after receiving a phone call. Rocky's reaction to the news was immediate and visceral. The shepherd paced restlessly, whining with an urgency that needed no translation. Captain Reed made the call to his superiors without hesitation. "We have an active kidnapping situation linked to national security. Request immediate authorization to pursue." Mountain shadows. The intelligence led them to a compound hidden in the mountains near the earthquake zone, a fortified location serving as the headquarters for the terrorist operation. Satellite imagery revealed extensive security measures and multiple armed guards. What it couldn't show was the presence of hostages inside. That required Rocky's unique abilities. The approach took them through treacherous terrain, using the mountain's natural features for cover. Rocky moved with supernatural focus, his senses tuned to both potential dangers and the scent he seemed determined to locate. When they established an observation position overlooking the compound, Captain Reed deployed specialized audio equipment to capture sounds from inside. Among the recordings, Santiago isolated a child's voice. The team watched as Rocky's ears perked forward, his entire body tensing with recognition. "He knows she's in there," Reed confirmed. "And that changes everything about how we approach this." Their infiltration plan required perfect timing and distraction. As night fell, they separated into two teams, one to create a diversion at the compound's main entrance, the other to infiltrate through a less guarded service area. Rocky would lead the infiltration team, using his scent capabilities to locate Maria. The operation began precisely at midnight. As explosions and gunfire erupted at the main gate, drawing guards and attention, Captain Reed, Rocky, and Specialist Cooper slipped through the perimeter fence on the opposite side. Rocky moved with absolute certainty, leading them through service corridors and past storage areas, avoiding patrols with uncanny timing. The shepherd stopped outside a heavy door in the compound's interior, his behavior indicating Maria's presence beyond. Cooper made quick work of the lock, and they entered to find both Maria and her father bound in a sparse room. Judge Vasquez's eyes widened in recognition, not of the soldiers, but of Rocky. "The dog from the reports," he whispered. "The one who found her in the rubble." Maria's reaction was immediate. Despite her bonds and obvious fear, her face transformed with hope at the sight of Rocky. The shepherd went directly to her, nuzzling her reassuringly, while Cooper cut her restraints. "They made Papa do bad things," Maria whispered to Rocky. "They said they would hurt me if he didn't help them." As they prepared to extract the hostages, alarms suddenly blared throughout the compound. Their diversion had been identified, and security forces were now converging on their position. "Primary exit route compromised," Santiago reported through their comms. "All approaches being locked down." The unexpected alliance. Their escape route cut off, the team was forced deeper into the compound, seeking alternative exits while evading pursuit. Judge Vasquez, once recovered from his initial shock, proved unexpectedly valuable. "There's a tunnel system," he revealed. "I've seen them use it for moving goods. It connects to the old mining network." Rocky's behavior changed at the mention of tunnels. The shepherd's ears flattened briefly, a reaction Reed recognized from their earliest training sessions when Rocky encountered situations that triggered memories of his cartel past. "Rocky knows tunnels," Reed stated simply. "Lead us there." The judge guided them to a hidden entrance behind storage shelving in the basement level. As they entered the narrow passageway, Rocky took point without hesitation, his past experiences becoming their present salvation. What followed was a tense journey through a labyrinthine system that would have been impossible to navigate without Rocky's assistance. The shepherd moved with the confidence of one returning to a familiar skill, leading them through junctions and warning them away from unstable sections. Maria remained close to Rocky throughout, her small hand often resting on his back for reassurance. The bond between them had transcended their initial rescue connection. They moved almost as a single unit, the child intuitively following the shepherd's subtle cues. When they encountered a checkpoint within the tunnel system, it was this connection that proved decisive. The guards were prepared for armed resistance, but not for the sight of a child walking deliberately toward them with a German shepherd at her side. In the moment of confusion that followed, Rocky launched into action with precision that left no opportunity for response. The guards were neutralized before they could alert others to the team's presence. She distracted them deliberately. Cooper observed with amazement. She knew exactly what Rocky was going to do. They continued through the tunnels, eventually emerging into an abandoned mining shaft nearly 2 miles from the compound. As they regrouped and established communications with extraction forces, Captain Reed observed the continuing interaction between Rocky and Maria. The child whispered something to the shepherd, who responded by alerting toward a specific tunnel entrance they hadn't yet explored. Judge Vasquez translated his daughter's explanation. She says Rocky wants to show us something important. She says he remembers this place. Reed made a tactical decision that contradicted standard procedure but honored the intuition that had guided their success thus far. Cooper, with me. Santiago, secure the hostages and coordinate extraction. We're following Rocky's lead. Full circle. The tunnel Rocky identified descended deeper into the mountain. As they progressed, Reed began to recognize characteristics that didn't match the newer construction of the terrorist tunnel network. These passageways were older, reinforced with different materials. These are cartel tunnels, Reed realized. Probably abandoned years ago when border security shifted. Rocky moved with increasing urgency, his behavior suggesting not just recognition but purpose. When they reached a large chamber approximately half a mile into the mountain, the shepherd stopped, indicating a section of wall that appeared solid but slightly discolored. False wall, Cooper confirmed after examination. Professional construction. Behind the concealed entrance, they discovered what Rocky had somehow known or remembered, a massive weapons cache far larger than what they'd found in the compound. The room contained crates of military-grade explosives, advanced missile systems, and communications equipment, an arsenal capable of supporting major terrorist operations across multiple countries. This isn't just a cell, Reed stated, documenting the find. This is a hub connecting multiple networks. More significant than the weapons were the digital storage devices and documents, intelligence that would allow authorities to identify and dismantle operations across the region. The discovery was transformative, upgrading their mission from a tactical success to a strategic victory. As they secured the site and reported their findings, Captain Reed watched Rocky return to Maria's side at the extraction point, the shepherd's mission apparently complete. The dog lay beside the child, his head resting on her lap as they waited for transport. Judge Vasquez approached Reed, his expression solemn. Your dog knew about this place, he stated. How is that possible? Reed considered the question carefully. Rocky was a cartel dog before we rescued him. Trained to find tunnels, detect security measures, protect shipments. We rehabilitated him, retrained him, gave him a new purpose. He watched the shepherd gently nuzzle Maria's hand. But he never forgot his past. He just needed the right reason to use that knowledge for good. The judge nodded slowly. Like me, he said quietly. I was compromised, using my position to protect criminals because I was afraid for my daughter. Perhaps we both needed redemption. Shadows into light. 3 months later, a special ceremony was held at Border Patrol headquarters. The operation had led to the dismantling of 3 major terrorist cells and the arrest of 12 high-level operatives. Judge Vasquez, after a brief leave of absence, had returned to the bench and was now leading a judicial task force on border security corruption. Captain Reed stood at attention as the commendations were read, Rocky sitting perfectly still beside him. The shepherd's coat gleamed in the lights of the ceremony, the scars of his past still visible but faded now against his healthy frame. When Maria stepped forward to present Rocky with a special medal designed specifically for K-9 service, the formality of the ceremony briefly dissolved. The shepherd broke position to greet her properly, tail wagging with unrestrained joy. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience as the little girl who had been rescued from darkness pinned the medal to Rocky's ceremonial vest. Rocky reminds us that our past doesn't have to define our future, the Border Patrol Commissioner stated in his address. What matters is the choice to use our experiences, even painful ones, to serve a greater purpose. After the ceremony, Captain Reed received new orders. Their team was being expanded, with additional resources for K-9 training and deployment. More significantly, Judge Vasquez had arranged for Maria to participate in a special program working with rescue dogs, starting with supervised visits with Rocky. She has a gift for understanding them, the judge explained. The therapists say it's helping her process her trauma. They communicate somehow. As they prepared to depart for their next mission, Reed noticed Rocky's attention repeatedly returning to Maria. The bond between them remained powerful, transcending explanation. Don't worry, boy, Reed assured the shepherd as they loaded their gear. We'll be back soon. Some connections can't be broken by distance. Rocky sat tall in the transport vehicle, his posture reflecting not just the military training that had reshaped him, but something more fundamental. The transformation of a spirit once used for destruction, now dedicated to protection. His journey from cartel weapon to national hero, from shadow to light, was complete. Yet as the vehicle pulled away, Captain Reed understood that Rocky's greatest achievement wasn't finding weapons or navigating minefields. It was finding Maria in the rubble when all hope seemed lost. One lost soul recognizing another, and in that recognition, both finding their way home. In the shadows of our own lives, we all carry versions of Rocky's story. From the rescue workers who pulled children from earthquake rubble in Haiti and Turkey, to the K-9 units that located survivors days after building collapses in Miami and Mexico City. These aren't just heartwarming news segments, but testaments to extraordinary bonds forged in humanity's darkest moments. Every day, former addicts become counselors, using their painful pasts to guide others toward healing. Ex-offenders become mentors, transforming their mistakes into roadmaps for youth at risk. Veterans with PTSD find purpose in service dogs who sense their panic attacks before they begin, creating partnerships that transcend explanation. The most profound truth in Rocky's journey isn't fiction. It's playing out in rehabilitation centers, disaster zones, and therapy sessions worldwide. When that little girl's hand reached for Rocky in the rubble, she wasn't just touching fur. She was connecting with something science still struggles to fully explain. The mysterious, life-saving intuition that exists between species. How many lives might be transformed if we learn to trust the Rocky in ourselves? That part of us that knows, beyond training or logic, exactly how to turn our deepest wounds into someone else's salvation. Thank you for watching this heartfelt story. We hope it touched your heart and left you with something meaningful to reflect on. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more inspiring stories like this. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next video.